we're just going to go ahead and get started so that y'all can get to church on time and we don't have to rush through everything. Does that sound good? And I only have 2 slides of recap, so it's going to go really quick. Of course, we're going through the first couple kings in the book of 1st and 2nd Samuel. We're going through the kingship of Saul and then the kingship of David. They both have a meteoric rise, and then they both sort of tumble in their own way. Saul tumbles beyond saving, or beyond, the salvation of his kingdom. His dynasty is set to ruin through his folly and his foolishness. David, of course, has his own rise. He is also going to have a pretty intense failure, but he's going to recover, and his kingdom is going to recover. And in fact, all of his children are going to go through that same process of having major failings and failures. But God's promise is that no matter what happens in your family lineage, your kingdom will never end. It will be an eternal kingdom. The kingdom of the dynasty of David will be everlasting. Like God is everlasting, so shall his kingdom be. That's the promise that we're going to read about today in the story of what we would call the Davidic covenant. Also, it ends, again, very bleak for Saul. And I mentioned last time, this image I find is so funny, primarily because these all look like medieval knights, as I told you. So it's, that's one of these things where in art renderings throughout history, historical accuracy has never really been the priority. It's been comprehensibility, right? For the lay people, or people, being able to understand through visuals that, they would understand. But yeah, I've been to actually where Saul died, and it looks nothing like that either. So it's just completely, completely different. But okay, so my 2 slides of recap. You all know why we're here and what we're doing here, right? So thankful for you guys that we've gone through this year. This is our last meeting of 2025. I don't know how long it's going to take us to get through all of this, to be honest. Yeah. So maybe we'll have another Christmas season where maybe we'll be in Revelation next time. Anyway, today we're talking about the couple different things, but most importantly, we're talking about the establishment of the city of Jerusalem. Okay. Jerusalem is a very important thing in the Bible that we have not encountered yet. Right. And so I don't know if any of you have noticed that, if you've been consistent. Why haven't we, I think you asked a few weeks ago when we were sort of doing our recap on everything. You're like, where does David fit in? Right. And I was like,
David.
Yeah, he's coming. Yeah. And then now we have Jerusalem, the city of David proper. So we're going to talk through that. It's a very unique and overlooked story that people don't really talk about as much in 2 Samuel chapter 5. We're going to talk about the Davidic covenant. So the promise made to David that he is going to have an everlasting kingdom, a kingdom that will reign forever, he and his sons. Of course, Jesus being the final Davidic king, the final and everlasting Davidic king, he is the fulfillment of that promise to David, that there will always be a son from your flesh and blood who will sit on a throne forever and ever, right? So that's sort of what the New Testament is getting at when it talks about Jesus being the son of David, right? Which it says time and again. We're going to talk about those 2 things, and if we have time, we're going to talk about Mephibosheth, I think is how you pronounce his name. So we'll try to get to that as a bonus, the son of Jonathan, and sort of what goes on there with David and Mephibosheth. And then we'll probably look at 3 or 4 Psalms today. Again, normally we would look at him in our dedicated Psalms meetings, but I think that they'll be relevant today most of all, so we'll read them today. How does that sound? Sound good, everyone? Okay, so let's just get into it, okay? Saul is officially out of the way, having been killed in battle. In fact, he killed himself in battle. And again, remember, his story is emblematic of so much of what it means to sort of go your own way and how that ends up, right? But David is now officially able to assume his rightful role publicly and effectively as the Messiah. Why do I say Messiah? Moshiach means anointed one, right? So he's the present day in their time, messianic figure, the king of Israel. The Davidic dynasty officially begins in the stories of 2 Samuel. In these chapters, David is appropriately entitled the shepherd of Israel. So David is a shepherd boy, of course, and God is said to be the shepherd of Israel, but God says to David, you shall be the shepherd of my people. It's really significant as we will get into sort of the shepherd language that we find in the New Testament with Jesus and stuff like that. But let's go ahead and get into the reading. Open up to 2 Samuel chapter 5. We're going to pick up at verse 1. 2 Samuel chapter 5, starting at verse 1. Just so you know, 1 Samuel ends with the death of Saul. And then 1 Samuel picks up right where it leaves off because they're not really two different books. They're one book in two parts, okay, that we find here in the Bible, in the modern Bible at least. Okay, 2 Samuel chapter 5, picking up at verse 1, and I'll just go ahead and read it. Then all the tribes of Israel went to David at Hebron and told him, we are your own flesh and blood. In the past, when Saul was our king, you were the one who really led the forces of Israel. Remember that David was the leader of 1,000 men, right? Under Saul's, monarchy. And Yahweh told you, you will be the shepherd of my people Israel. You will be Israel's leader. Pause. I just want to note those first 4 chapters that we skipped. It contains just a lot of infighting, civil war aspects of between different factions, those loyal to Saul's dwindling dynasty, right? His dwindling house, right? And then David rising, essentially. And David is still honorable to Saul and his people throughout it all. So that's very interesting. But so now Israel is recognizing David is going to be their king under a united kingdom, right? Verse 3. So there at Hebron, King David made a covenant before Yahweh with all the elders of Israel, and they anointed him king of Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in all. What's 30 plus 40? 70. It's 70, yeah. He had reigned over Judah from Hebron for 7 years and 6 months, and from Jerusalem he reigned over all Israel and Judah for 33 years. Okay, so starting at verse 6, we're going to shift gears in the story. That was sort of a summary statement to introduce a story now. And the story is the capture of Jerusalem. Before we get into that, I am going to do a couple of slides. So remember that shepherds are the main image of the good guy in the Bible, okay? So if we think about the difference between Cain and Abel, going all the way back to the first pages of the Bible, remember that Cain was a man of the city, or at least that's how he's portrayed, is he's a tiller of the ground, which implies a city dweller, and he founds the first city, right? Whereas Abel, the slain prophet, is a keeper of the sheep, right? And then you have, Nimrod and Abraham. Nimrod is the founder of Babel, and then Abraham goes out of Babel to tend flocks in a land that he, did not know, right? The idea that you have Pharaoh and Moses. Pharaoh is the king of Egypt, but Moses is sent out of Egypt, sent out of the city to be a shepherd. Right? What's unique about David, though? David, who is to be the leader of Israel and who's to have an eternal dynasty, an everlasting, never-ending dynasty, right? How does David fit into all of this? Okay, great. Yeah, excellent. So he is the shepherd who founds a city. So we can start to see some of the antagonism between these archetypes, these societal archetypes for these kinds of figures that have been, that antagonism's been persistent throughout the Bible. But in King David, he's going to unify elements of the world that are at odds, right? That's part of what the role of David is going to represent. Going all the way forward, the idea that David or David's sons or David's dynasty is not going to be simply a dynasty ruling over Israel, but ruling over all nations. All nations are at odds with each other, but in David, they will all be unified. So David is unifying. He is the shepherd who founds a city and unifies all things in his city. That's going to be a big deal as we continue on through what David means. You could say the archetype or the image of David. And then Jerusalem. What does Jerusalem mean? What is Jerusalem supposed to be conveying? It's supposed to be conveying the city as it should have been, the city that is actually founded by a shepherd. It's unifying these two, again, disparate archetypes of the people out in the wilderness, the lower class, right? The rural folk who are reliant on God for, the wilderness wanderings and things like that. And then the city folk who try to, build technology and ascend humanity. And, how the Bible is conveyed how the city is conveyed in the Bible is that it is sort of, evil festers in the city. You can think of, this is a lame reference, but you can think of Obi-Wan and Luke. Mos Eisley, you will never find a greater hive of scum and villainy, right? That's sort of how, whenever the Bible thinks about Egypt or Sodom and Gomorrah or things like that, if you remember, it's a dark place. It's conveyed as a dark place. Jerusalem, however, is going to be a place of light. It's going to be a city on a hill with its light shining. And then David, of course, is said to be the shepherd over Israel. So he was a literal shepherd boy, but in many respects, he is going to be the leader, right? In that way, the shepherd of the people. Now, when you think of the image of shepherd, what do you think about? We talked a little bit about it last time. Sorry?
I was just saying
sheep. Okay, you think about sheep? Sure. What do sheep do? They're not very smart creatures, right? And they go.
shepherd, I think of like servant leader.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He's serving them, but he's also
Servant leader. Yeah, because what a shepherd is doing is his main job is making sure he is leading, but he's leading through his humble service to his sheep, defending them from predators, feeding them, making sure they know where to go, right? But yeah, sheep are not very smart, and they will go any direction without some leadership. Kind of makes you think back to the book of Judges. In those days, there was no king, and everyone did what was right in their own eyes, right? So they need a shepherd because, like sheep, they have all gone astray, right? You have this shepherding language of the people through a chosen one, through an anointed one, someone appointed with power, the empowerment of the Holy Spirit to lead the people. Okay, so you have David, who is appointed to be the shepherd, but of course he's going to have his failure, and he's going to lead, in many respects, he's going to lead Israel to bad places, right? He's not going to be a perfect shepherd. He's not going to be a good shepherd in the way that Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, right? So what do the prophets anticipate? They anticipate a coming shepherd. So here's an example. Ezekiel 34, I will place over them one shepherd, my servant David, and he will tend them, and he will tend them and be their shepherd. Ezekiel is hundreds of years after David, okay? So which David is Ezekiel talking about? This is during the exile. This is after the line of kings has gotten so corrupt. David's line of kings has gotten so corrupt that now God has sent them into exile into Babylon. But there's a prophecy. The prophecy is there is a David to come. There is a shepherd to come, right? So why, again, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd in the New Testament, it should be evidently clear why he starts using language like that, right? He's speaking of himself as the shepherd that Ezekiel prophesied about, that whatever David was supposed to be, or whatever God said of David that he was supposed to be, that Jesus, who is in the line of David, is the fulfillment of that. Does that make sense? He is the true king. He is the true servant leader. And then, yeah, he lays down his life for his sheep, the servant leadership, right? That to be a shepherd or to be a good shepherd is to be one who lays down his life, as Jesus does on the cross.
So there are these scriptural references to shepherds, but they were also kind of despised.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when did that start?
Mm.
Was that
I mean, biblically speaking, again, that's a Cain and Abel thing.
From the beginning.
From the beginning, right?
So it's this kind of tension between using this as something to
Yeah.
look forward to the Messiah
Right.
and that language, and then at the same time being
Right.
despised or
Yeah.
not thought well of.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because Jesus is despised among men, right? Yeah, even going all the way back to the prejudice of the Egyptians against the Israelites has to do with sort of their class as shepherds, right? Yep.
Just a quick thought. So when Ezekiel was mentioning David as a king, they're talking about like the lineage of David. Why didn't he use like the lineage of Judah?
That's a good question.
Again, it's like
I think because
his writing.
yeah. Remember, he's writing this after that Judah lineage is honed in on with David to just David, right? So what the chosenness of Judah is leading towards the chosenness of David, leading towards the son of David who is to come, right? Who is Jesus. Yeah. But yeah, my point here is, again, this is after when we get through the end of the book of Kings. They're now sent into exile into Babylon. The kings of Israel have been so wayward that now they're reaping the consequences of it. But there's still a promise. The true son of David, the true shepherd, is coming to reunite us and to restore our kingdom, right? And of course, Peter, you were all like sheep gone astray. That is he's quoting Isaiah there. And then he says, but you have now returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls, right? He's speaking of Jesus, and he's speaking of, again, the shepherd language of David as shepherd is applied to God, right? You have some incarnational language going on there. Who is the shepherd? Is it God or is it the son of David? Yes, right? That's exactly the point of when we talk about what the New Testament is getting at with the unification of God and man in Jesus. Right? David is that person. Okay, so let's go read now the conquering of Jerusalem story. So you are to be the shepherd of the people, David, and now we get into a story of the conquering of Jerusalem. Speaking about verse 6. David led his men to Jerusalem to fight against the Jebusites, the original inhabitants of the land who were living there. The Jebusites taunted David, saying, "You'll never get in here. Even the blind and the lame could keep you out," for the Jebusites thought they were safe. But David captured the fortress of Zion, which is now called the City of David. On the day of the attack, David said to his troops, "I hate those quote-unquote lame and blind Jebusites. Whoever attacks them should strike by going into the city through the water tunnel. That is the origin of the saying, 'The blind and the lame may not enter the house.'" So David made the fortress his own, and he called it the City of David. He extended the city, starting at the supporting terraces and working inward. And David became more and more powerful because Yahweh God of heaven's armies was with him. Okay, pause. So what happened there? It's a little confusing. It's not readily apparent what happened there. Okay, this is where I'm going to ask the question. Did any of you watch that video? Who watched that video?
It was the lady.
Yes.
Everything.
3, 4 of us watched the video. Do you guys just want to watch it again? Are you open to that? The thing is I thought it was such a good video that I was hoping everyone would watch it. So I know I sent it. But I'll show it to you guys, and then we'll talk through the story if that's okay. Here we go. Yeah, I thought that was a good explanation, and she explained it better than I could. So, by the way, that is exactly what it feels like when you're in Israel and you have a tour guide who's walking you through stuff, and you're just like, every second of every day, you know what I mean? You're just like, oh my gosh, I get to see it all, you know? I love in that video when she says, yeah, see that mountain? Like, that's the place where where it says, like, he saw the mountain, you know, that God told him to go to, like, would have been over there because that's where you can actually see it from, you know? Like, oh man, because it connects all the things too, you know? But what she's talking about is that for the longest time, people misinterpreted where the city of David actually was, because throughout history, cities grow. And so the question is, where is the original Jerusalem that was founded by King David? Well, for the longest time, they thought it was in a completely different side of town, essentially, when in reality, the way that they found the real ancient Jerusalem is the same way, as she says, that David established the city by going up through this tunnel, right? So it is absolutely amazing that modern archaeology is that it truly does enlighten us to lost and more accurate understandings of the Bible that we were unaware of before, right? In the case of the location of the city of David, it wasn't until Lieutenant Charles Warren discovered the ancient water shaft mentioned in 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 8, right? So truly incredible what David is saying in these verses. If we go back to the verses, is they say, you're not going to be able to capture this city. It's high and fortified, and you're not going to be able to capture it even if we put disabled people, right, on our front lines. You won't even be able to get through us. And he says, okay, we'll infiltrate from beneath, right? We'll come from beneath. We will go through the water shaft and we will conquer your city, right? He invites his men to go do that, right? So any takeaways from that video and sort of going through that? What are your thoughts on that?
It's just interesting how, even the archaeologist says, well, he came to dig and stuff. He was turned away from the city.
Yeah.
I know you're saying.
Oh, hey, there you go. That's really incredible. I didn't think about that either. Yeah, he was turned away. Yeah, that's really interesting. What else?
I don't understand with the lame and the blind. Going through with lame, that would be obviously easy. And then it says David doesn't like the lame and the blind.
Yeah, well, that was kind of an interesting translation, to be honest, that I wasn't sure of. It's sort of a quote unquote, like lame and blind. And yeah, it says there's a saying, the lame and blind shall not come into the house. Really, really important, though, what is being established there with the idea of the lame and the blind idea. So the Jebusites are using it as a taunt for David and his men, that if we put lame and blind people on our city walls, you wouldn't be able to even get past them. So it becomes this sort of taunt against the Israelites in that case, right? And then it says, and so there arose a saying, because they were able to get into the city, so the lame and blind shall not enter the house, right? So like a reversal, right? So they said we weren't going to be able to get through the lame and the blind, excuse me, and so now they won't come in to where we are, right? It's a reverse taunt, if that makes sense. And you shouldn't be taking it literally, simply because there's very important aspects of that story, including with Mephibosheth, which we'll get into, right? At the end, hopefully at the end of today. So just put a pin in that whole concept of lame and blind and the city and being welcome in the city. Put a pin in that for the end of today. Does that make sense? Cool.
Is this the first mention of the word Zion?
Yes. Yeah, we'll get into that. That's really, really good. Yeah. Do you have something to say to that?
Well, just that, it's like totally linked to Jewish and godly zeal, but it existed before it was Jewish, before it was Israeli.
That's right. There's a little bit of typological stuff going on here with Jesus. As most of the Bible, you could sort of see how it unfolds into some lesson of how Jesus does things and what he does in fact do. What am I thinking of? Can you guys guess? How does this resemble Jesus?
He went underneath and then rose out.
Okay, so he went underground and then he came up again. Sure. Okay. That actually is part of what I'm thinking about. You have to go through the water tunnel. Okay. So passing through the waters, right? A sort of baptism, which establishes a salvation, right? An undergroundness of that, going down into the depths of the earth, right? As he's buried. The descent and then reascension is also an infiltration.
Whoever's willing to go to the lowest places.
There you go. Exactly. Yep. Whoever will be the captain of my guard, right? Is what he says. He says, whoever is willing to go down into the depths of the earth and infiltrate the city and come up again. Yeah, really, really excellent. You guys caught it. And it's crazy. Like it's the most confusing, it's a very confusing story and you don't really understand what's going on unless you really, get the sense of the archaeology and the sort of how the city is outlined and stuff like that. But then once you understand it, then you're like, oh, that's sort of like Jesus, right? That's sort of what Jesus does. He infiltrates in an underground, secret way, and he conquers from the inside, from the depths and the heart of the earth. Yep.
I was going to say that I think our view of salvation is forgiveness of sin, and this view of salvation is overcoming the world, so to speak.
Yeah. Christus Victor atonement theory. Yes, that's right. There's different atonement concepts of what Jesus on the cross is actually doing in saving us. And yeah, that would be one of them, is the example of, salvation is God, Jesus overcoming sin and death or the powers of darkness. This is,
The story, it's almost saying like he can't do it without us.
What do you mean?
So David sends his people.
I think in this case, Joab is the type of Christ, and David would be the type of father. Right? For God to love the world so yeah.
Type of Christ.
Sorry, it doesn't say it in this passage. It says it in Chronicles that it was Joab, David's right-hand man, who so in that case, he's the one playing Jesus. Yeah. And then David is the one playing the father who sends his son, right? If that makes sense. Yeah. So the rules, that you can switch them up when you're talking about typology, but that's the interesting thing, guys. I mean, that's what's so cool about the Bible, and we've done this multiple times in a row. Like, you're looking at a story that is talking about events that take place in history, but somehow it's mirroring or it's modeling sort of what you see in Jesus, makes it evidently clear that it's truly an inspired, unified work. It's crazy how those patterns manifest, Anything else?
Well, just so we see over and over and over again all these different signposts, all these different. This is it's Advent in a sense.
Yeah,
it's what's coming.
Yeah,
and at the same time, Jesus said, "He who has eyes to see, you have ears to hear." So it's like you can be exposed to all this for over your whole lifetime. The getting ready for this and miss it when it comes.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
see, you don't hear.
That's very true. Yeah.
Is the original city of David where the Temple Mount is at?
The Temple Mount would be just like above, elevated over the city of David. So the city of David is on the slopes of Mount Moriah, and then that would sort of end the city wall, and then just outside the city wall would be the actual temple. But in David's day, he doesn't build the temple, right? That's Solomon.
Still ascending to Jerusalem.
Yeah, you sort of, as you go through the city of David, you're ascending the mountain. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk more about the mountain. Is that good? So you guys got the story. Pretty awesome typology going on there. Pretty awesome history and archaeology going on there. And hopefully that video was a little bit of an advertisement. Sign up for Israel one of these years. Seriously. Are you still going? Yeah. Are you just so excited? I'm excited for you. Yeah. So as you mentioned, Bob, this is the first mention of the word Zion or Zion in the text of Scripture. Zion, it means something kind of unique. It means like marking or the mark, right? If you think of like X marks the spot, this is the marking place. Okay. So Zion is first mentioned in the Bible here in 2 Samuel chapter 5. Zion means marking, or more specifically in the broader context, the place of God's mark. Okay, the place of God's mark. Zion is understood throughout the Bible to be the true cosmic mountain, the true Garden of Eden. Okay, what do I mean by that? Let's go all the way back to our very, very first meetings. Refresh your mind so we can start thinking about the importance of Jerusalem. Okay, what do mountains represent in the Scripture? Okay, the place of ascension, right? The realm of the heavenlies, right? This is not just in the Bible, this is throughout all of the ancient world. Mountains are conceived of as the places where the gods dwell, right? Where the high places, yes, exactly. The places where power dwells, okay, is on mountaintops. If you go up to, or if you ascend a mountain, just think about the process of ascending a mountain. Think of yourself on like a pretty steep hike. What happens when you're on that hike? You get tired pretty quick. What else? You ascend in elevation, and what happens? Yeah, it gets a little bit harder to breathe, right? It's a realm that you're not quite prepared for. You're not quite equipped to exist up in the mountains or on the mountaintop, right? But the higher powers, they can dwell there. It's a place where they can go. And so what you have in the Bible is, remember, all the way back in Genesis chapter 2, as I said, then we were ascending a mountain because the Garden of Eden is conveyed as this mountain, a cosmic mountain. Cosmic meaning like a heavenly mountain, right? A mountain that is the meeting place of heaven and earth, right? That's the other thing. If you go to the highest point on the land, and the land represents earth, right? And the sky represents heaven, the high points on the land, they represent places where you can meet with heaven, right? Where you can meet with the presence of, again, spiritual powers on mountaintops, right? And Ezekiel, in the book of Ezekiel, he calls this the mountain of God, right? In Eden, the garden, the mountain of God, right? And remember that, Moses is on Mount Sinai. When the glory cloud comes down, he meets God on the mountain. And then he gets instructions to build the tabernacle, which becomes a mobile mountain. That as you go through the layers of the tabernacle, as you go through each curtain, you're symbolically ascending a mountain, okay? No matter where you are, that's going to be true of the temple as well. Remember, the garden on the mountain imagery is so important for you understanding sort of, again, what salvation means in the Bible, that you are meant to dwell in the garden mountain. You're meant to dwell with God. Adam and Eve were exiled from the garden mountain, but the whole story of the Bible is how will they get back to that garden mountain, okay? Because, of course, the garden mountain is the meeting place of heaven and earth. It's the intersection or the center of all the world. It's the center of all reality. It's where you meet with God in Eden, on the mountain, in paradise, okay? So you have the cosmic garden mountain. Understand that while Adam and Eve's garden certainly was a physical place with a specific longitude and latitude upon the earth, the garden of God as a concept is something that is not tied to one specific place or time. The later temple of Jerusalem, for example, will be the dwelling place of God on earth as a new Eden. Jesus says to the thief, "Today you will be with me in the garden." Okay? So when we have Jerusalem, Jerusalem is a mountain, okay? Or the Mount Zion is this place where now for the people of Israel, it's going to be the cosmic mountain. It's going to be the heavenly abode. It's going to be the place of God's marking. That's what Zion means, okay? It means mountain of God. It means the place where God is coming to dwell with the people. And so when you have the mountain of Jerusalem there, that's going to be really important. It literally is a city on a hill, but besides that, it's symbolically representing the garden city, right? The city that dwells on the mountain with the dwelling of God, it's the garden city. Again, remember the unity of shepherd and Cain and Abel in this place where they were exiled from the garden, in Genesis chapter 4, and there was a murder. Now there's a reconciliation happening with Mount Zion in Jerusalem, okay? I want you to just bookmark this thought that this mountain where Jerusalem is established, the city of Jerusalem, is the very same mountain. The Temple Mount is where it's the mountain that is shown to Abraham and told to Abraham to go for the binding of Isaac's story. Okay? Remember, Abraham goes up to the mountain and he takes the knife to Isaac, and God says, "Stop, Abraham. I will offer a sacrificial ram in his place." Okay? So this great revelation of God, of the salvation of God or the plan of God, what is to come, that is, the Lord will provide. That's the main message of the gospel. The Lord will provide is offered. That revelation is offered on this mountain, on Mount Zion or Mount Moriah, as otherwise called. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? Are you following me there? So it's the same place. I'm going to outline this region for you a little bit more so you can get a sense of what we're talking about, and then we'll bring it all home, okay? So the region of Zion, this is sort of how the landscape looks, okay? You have 3 major mountains and a few major valleys that exist here in the region of Zion or the region of Jerusalem. You have, as we talked about, the Garden of Eden, but then after that, you have here on the Mount of Moriah, you have the same place where Isaac is going to be offered as a sacrifice by Abraham, and then there's a reversal there that God will provide the lamb for the sacrifice. Again, a great revelation of God. But this is the same spot where that tabernacle tent that has been roaming around with Israel is going to turn into a building of stone, and it's going to be placed right over that spot where Isaac was to be offered as a sacrifice. Keep thinking about these facts as I'm giving them to you, because it's going to be really important as we continue, okay? The greater area around the city of David contains 3 major mounts, which also means 3 major valleys. While the city of David itself sits on the slope of Moriah, right, leading up to the temple at the top, Mount Olives, or Mount Olivet to the east, and Mount Zion proper. This is called Mount Zion in modern day, but the whole area is the mountains of Zion or Mount Zion. It's a mountain range. As you can see, there's 3, and there's more than that. But to the west are both vital to understanding the deep meanings interwoven into the story of the Bible. Even speaking of the Hinnom Valley, who knows what the Hinnom Valley is? Hinnom Valley, it's where we get the word hell from. Okay? We'll talk more about that in future meetings. Okay? So Jerusalem's landmarks. This is where the most important stuff is going to be taking place, by the way, guys. The crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus, it's happening in the region of Zion, or in these mountain ranges. The ascension, the Garden of Gethsemane, the temple, of course. Most of the stories of the Gospels that are most important are taking place in this city of Jerusalem, okay? It's supposed to be understood as, again, the center point of the story of the Bible is Jerusalem. It's where the most important stuff happens. So we have, this is what it would have looked like during the time of Solomon, or excuse me, probably during the time of David. I think that's supposed to be David's palace there. But yeah, this is what it would have looked like. This is a really good art rendering. Yep.
Go back to the last slide.
Yep.
Something that's just kind of, what, in the Christian context, what do you make of like the 7 chakras?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you asked this your first meeting.
Yeah, we're revisiting this again, and I forget what I just can't help but to think of like the Hinnom Valley as like the root chakra, which is what they say is like the chakra of chaos. You know, it's like the very earthly flesh desires and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that there's 3 valleys, which would mean that there's 3 lower chakras, and there's 3 mountains where they're like the 3 higher chakras, and in the middle it would be Zion, which would be like the heart chakra. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm noticing similarity.
It's beyond my level of knowledge. Yeah. So yeah. No, you're discovering patterns in how people talk about things. So yeah, I have nothing really to say to that except that that's interesting. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
So I guess I just wanted to point it out.
No, thank you for pointing that out. I think I mean, so I don't have those slides ready, but yeah, we have the waters, the land that comes out of the waters, the land of Eden that comes out of the land, just the land generally. You have a honing in. You have like levels of intensity moving up or moving in. You have the just the land generally, then you have the courtyard of the tabernacle, then you have the holy place, then you have the Holy of Holies, and then you have the throne of God in the center of the Holy of Holies. You know, so there is something to the idea of ascending to the most intense point of that's again that meeting point. So nothing to say besides that. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so Jerusalem, again, it's taking all of these images that we have had in the past and unifying them. The image of the city has traditionally been evil. or conceived of evil in the Bible, but now it is conceived of as good. Why is that? Because it is the garden city. It's the reunification of humanity with God at the Temple Mount, that God's dwelling comes onto the mountain. As Adam and Eve were in the garden on the mountain. And so you're blending together, or the Bible is blending together some disparate elements of the past, and now it's like things are being unified in the story of David and in the story of Jerusalem. These things that were at odds and opposed are now coming to their fullness, because this is how God is to restore humanity to himself, is by unifying all things in himself. So Jerusalem is that city that Abraham was waiting for, right? Of course, not this city. That's what we have to think about as well, is this is a city of stone and dirt, right? Like it's a thing that is going to go through ups and downs and destruction periods and things like that. It isn't really the eternal city, but in a way it is pointing towards the eternal city, which is called the New Jerusalem, okay? So this is Old Jerusalem. The Jerusalem that David founds is Old Jerusalem, but it's pointing forward toward a celestial city, a heavenly city, the city of the New Jerusalem, which comes down out of heaven from God directly. Okay?
Can I make one?
Yep.
I'm gonna just go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
With the 7 chakras, and I just thought about it. It says C.S. Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mere Christianity. Have you read that?
Yeah, we're reading.
We're almost done with it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's I think it's in there. There's a part in there where he says that, or that's not the right book. He says
It is.
Right.
I know what you're going to say. Yeah, it is the right book.
That when it comes to other religions, he says there's only one correct sum to a mathematics problem.
Yeah.
But some of the wrong answers are closer to the right one than others.
Yeah, that's right.
So he's basically saying, how I see that as well is that it's in our DNA as human beings to find the truth. That there's something in there that, so even the ones that get it wrong can be close.
Yeah. Well, they could be getting an aspect. They can be getting an aspect of something. Yeah, that is resonant.
What's coming to mind for me again is like the two worlds that used to be at odds, Buddhism and Christianity or anything like this. The wrong one and the right one can be unified if somebody like David comes through and with love and unify it.
So I want to respond to that just by saying that traditionally, the way that the church has dealt with, it's kind of sounds counterintuitive. This is a complete sidebar, by the way, guys. But I'm just responding to this. Traditionally, the way that the church has responded to paganism proper, paganism being all these systems that are not what God has revealed in Scripture. There has been an incorporation, but not in a syncretist incorporation. So syncretism means we're going to sort of create a melting pot, right? Of disparate things that don't actually agree, you know what I mean? And we're just going to have a hodgepodge of different faith systems or things like that. So that's what you would call syncretism, is sort of the wanton merging of things, you know what I mean? Like just the haphazard, like, yeah, just whatever, take a little bit of this, take a little bit of that, you know. Universalism, yeah. So that would be syncretist. What the church has done has not been syncretist, but it has been incorporatist. I don't know if that's the right term, in the sense that we truly are the ones who preserved the Iliad. And what I mean by that is Homer's Iliad, Greek mythology, is pagan, but it was Christian monks who were copying it. Same thing with the Norse gods. When you read the Norse mythology, it's written, you know, the one who compiled all the Norse mythology was a Christian. And so the idea here is the Christians always saw that there are things, and this is how C.S. Lewis saw it, there are always things in these systems that are pointing to the truth, right? But their job is to point toward something else. Their job is to point toward the truth, right? And in that way, they sort of are redeemed from demonic to angelic, if that makes sense.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
In my previous years, I was steeped in all that, just
right.
like I'm steeped in this now, but I've never felt more rooted.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
because you're made for this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is a call. It's like a calling in. It's like
moving upward.
But the others are like echoes, you know.
They're echoes,
The real.
shadows of the substance. Yeah.
It's kind of like, and so when we get to the truth, we recognize it because it's already been in us.
Yeah. Well, that's what we would say. The way that you discern something is truly demonic is if it doesn't point upward toward Jesus, right? Even if it's pagan, a pagan thing in some way, shape, or form can point up towards Jesus, And again, that's what made C.S. Lewis become a Christian in many respects, is because he loved the pagan myths so much. And then Tolkien was just like, what if it all happened, but for real, in this person, And then he was like, oh, well, the history is on point. Like, this historically happened. And the mythology all resonates with me.
But I can't help but to also acknowledge the fact that having that knowledge has helped me experientially read this book and not just have it here.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I want to point to the fact that the Magi were astrologers. Okay? Magi means astrologers. But God used their astrology, even though the people of Israel are not said to be astrologers. Per Leviticus and the Torah, you shall not look for omens in the sky. But the pagan Magi are given a message in the stars to come worship baby Jesus, So it's a good point.
You shall look for me.
Yeah.
There's a great movie called The Most Reluctant Convert.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it, but I know that is
really good.
Cool.
It's really, really good.
That's cool.
It talks kind of like that. I mean, he's going through hell and all these kind of things, and then step by step, almost like he doesn't want to.
Yeah.
But step by step.
That's how he described himself.
Oh, I guess I can't.
Yeah. The most reluctant convert in all of England. Yeah.
Amazon Prime. The reluctant convert. The most reluctant convert.
Yeah, that's right.
I was responding to the joy that he's experiencing.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Because that's in us.
Absolutely.
And that's why we come here. That's why we love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And what we're learning together.
Yeah.
Because we're made for this.
Yeah.
Can't help ourselves.
Yeah, amen. We're made for Jerusalem, the city of God. Okay?
We kind of are Jerusalem.
Yes, we are.
Because we're being remade and rebuilt. We do bad, we do good.
Oh, good. Yeah.
All the way up to...
That's a good thought.
When Christ comes, we'll be the city of God. We will be with him.
Yeah, well, I'll skip ahead then. We are the true Jerusalem. We are that new Jerusalem. We are the city of God, right? Like, that is the thing. It's like, hey, you're all in this room together. Welcome to Jerusalem, okay? It's like, you're here, okay? Let me come back to the slides. But yes, you have arrived, and there's a verse in Hebrews that says that outright. You have come to Mount Zion, you have come to Jerusalem, you have come to the assembly of God's people. Welcome to Jerusalem, okay? But again, this is the type and the shadow of a future fulfillment, is the establishment of the city of Jerusalem by King David, right? David's son will establish a greater Jerusalem, okay? Which you were all present for. This is, by the way, Jerusalem today. And if there's anywhere in the world that I would love to go to, just at any point, if you said, hey, if you want to go to anywhere in the world, where would you go? I would say the city of Jerusalem, even though I've already been there. But I just had such a fun time there, and it is so good. So this is known as the Temple Mount. This is Mount Moriah here. This big valley is the Kidron Valley, and then this photo is taken from the Mount of Olives, where all of these are all graves, by the way. Those are all bodies. Okay, those are above ground graves. Okay. They're all waiting for the resurrection at the second coming of Christ. So anyway, it's pretty wild. At one time, all of the Mount of Olives looked like this, the Garden of Gethsemane. This is the Garden of Gethsemane, by the way. At one time, the whole mountain looked like that. Now it's full of graves waiting for their resurrection, right? Seeds planted in the ground, right? And then here's the city streets of Jerusalem, right? You can see the Crusader cross there, or the Jerusalem cross. So pretty cool, huh? Yerushalayim means the city of peace. Shalom means peace. So Jerusalem means city of peace. This is immensely important and connected all the way forward to what is referred to later in the Bible as the New Jerusalem, the eternal city of complete wholeness. Remember, peace in the Bible does not mean inactivity. Peace in the Bible means that things are whole. Things are not broken. Things are working according to their purpose in their design. Things are operating as they should. Go ahead.
I hate to go off topic. Why would they have the Crusader cross in Jerusalem when the Crusade was kind of a dark era?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So that is an aside, but that's a great question. I mean, many of the buildings in Jerusalem are Crusader era buildings. I'll just say that. But it's not really called. It's both called the Crusader cross and the Jerusalem cross. I mean, that symbol is wrapped up in a lot more than just the Crusades, for sure. But it's just called that. Yeah, that's a good question. But many of the buildings there in Jerusalem that stand today are Crusader era. Because again, you have, as you said, layers and layers and layers. Yeah. So good question. So Jerusalem is both an archetype as well as a literal correspondent of what is known as the heavenly city that comes down from God on high as his blessing. Okay. Any further questions on this, on Jerusalem? This has been a really important meeting so far, talking about Jerusalem, simply because there's going to be a lot of talk about Zion and Jerusalem to come in the Bible, okay? And without this meeting, you're not really going to understand what the point of all that is, about the prayers that God would keep and restore Jerusalem, about the tears and the sorrow and the mourning and the lament of the destruction of Jerusalem when Israel goes into exile. You can think of this place as the true Garden of Eden space, okay? That God here now is going to restore all things to himself. And of course, it's here where Jesus will be sacrificed, right? Where he will go through his crucifixion, and where he will be resurrected, and where he will ascend, and where he will return to. Like, this is the center of the world. If Israel represents sort of a land that is the center of the world, the center of Israel is Jerusalem. And I don't mean that literally, I mean that symbolically. It's the important place. So much so, in fact, that, in the present day, Zion is not referred to as just that spot. The whole land of Israel is oftentimes referred to as Zion, meaning they're referring to Jerusalem at the center of it as it represents the whole. So this is a slide from all the way back in the beginning. Don't get it wrong, Cain's building of a city was not an idealistic turn in the story, but now it is. Okay? So what was a city founded on blood and violence and the killing of Abel, of one's brother, the killing of the shepherd, the killing of the prophet? Now the shepherd prophet establishes a city. It's a redemption. Okay? It's a redemption of the city of Cain now that there is a city of God in Israel, a Jerusalem, a city of peace. Now this Jerusalem in the book of Revelation is going to be called Sodom and Gomorrah and Babylon and Egypt. And yeah, it's going to be like, this is corrupt. This is not the real thing. It's pointing toward the real thing, the city that comes down out of heaven from God. Okay. So I want to point you to two passages. By faith, Abraham migrated to the land of promise as if it were foreign, dwelling in tents with Isaac and Jacob, fellow heirs of the promise. He was waiting for the city that has foundations, whose architect and builder is God. So he leaves Babel, he leaves Babylon, he leaves Ur of the Chaldeans, and he ventures out to a city that has not yet been built, a city that he is waiting on. That same city is built on the slopes of the mountain where God reveals the Lord will provide the lamb for the sacrifice. We're bringing together all of these different things now. They're coalescing, they're coming together, they're congealing in the city of Jerusalem and David. Revelation chapter 14, verse 1. I looked, and before me was the Lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 who had his name and his father's name marked on their foreheads. What does Zion mean? The mark, the place of God's marking. And it is those who are marked by God with his name and the name of his son, right? Who stand on Mount Zion together at the end of time. Does that make sense? And of course, Hebrews chapter 12, verses 22 through 24. You have come to Mount Zion. This is a New Testament author speaking of the church. You have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, and to myriads of angels, a joyous gathering, and to the assembly of the firstborn, who are written in the scroll of heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of the righteous ones made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks of something better than the blood of Abel. Why do I keep bringing up Cain and Abel and the city of Cain founded on the blood of Abel? The Jerusalem is the redemption of that. And this is the vision. This is what in contemporary culture we call heaven, just generally. That's not really biblical. Heaven is the place of God's dwelling, but we belong where God's dwelling comes to live with us, okay? Comes down into the heavenly city. So Mount Zion and you know, that all of that literalness of it, that there's a real mountain, a real city of David, a real tunnel that was, you know, infiltrated by Joab, a real city that was established by David. It's types and shadows of the spiritual liberation that you all have come to, if that makes sense, by passing through your own waters, right? And good. Jerusalem. Makes sense, guys? I wanted to get through the founding of the story of Jerusalem. Now that we're here, we're going to be talking a lot more about Jerusalem to come. Okay?
In that last video you said, that's also the place where Abraham met with Melchizedek.
Okay, yes. Thank you for reminding me that we have a lot more to get through. Oh boy, I forgot that we were talking about that today. Shoot. Okay, here we go. I've got those slides. Okay. Well, yes, let's get into that. How does that sound? Yeah, good. So we had the shepherd boy David, right? The shepherd boy David. But now we have King David, older, wiser. He's gone through the weathered years of being on the run. But in order to understand David and who Jesus is supposed to be, we have to talk about someone else. We have to talk about Melchizedek. You have to talk about Melchizedek. So thank you for reminding me that these slides were coming up. So who is Melchizedek?
He's the original.
The OG.
Yeah.
First high priest, right?
The high priest of where? Of Salem, which is the proto-Jerusalem. Sorry?
He was like a Gentile.
He was a Canaanite or a Jebusite, because the Jebusites who lived there in the land of Canaan. And, he was a king. He was the king of Salem and the priest of the Most High God. Priest of Most High God in Salem. Sorry?
Wasn't that like not allowed to be a king and a priest if that was
Normally, yeah, to Levitical law, yes. Which is why it makes it interesting. Why is David dressing up as a priest, right? And things like that. We'll get into that. But yeah, so why this spot? Why Zion? Why the place of God's marking and Jerusalem, this city that already existed there that had to be infiltrated, this fortress? This is where 1,000 years before David, you had another figure, Melchizedek. His name can either mean my king is righteousness or king of righteousness. So his name is King of Righteousness. And he is the king of what city? Salem. What does Salem mean? Well, what did I say Jerusalem means?
city of peace?
City of peace. Salem means peace. So he's the king of peace. He's the king of righteousness. He's the priest of Jerusalem, right? And he brings out bread and wine to Abraham. This is after Abraham defeats the giants and saves all of the land from the giants of Babylon, right?
Also gave him a lot of gold too, right?
He gives him so Abraham pays the tithe to Melchizedek. Yeah, that's the first tithe mentioned in the Bible, right? So let's speak about, he's a priest of the Most High God. What does that mean? Let's just recap on what priests are. In antiquity, priests were appointed as mediators between the gods and humanity. Priests acted as representatives on behalf of the people in their sphere of influence as they coordinated the affairs between the seen and the unseen. They worked on tending to the upkeep and purification of sacred space and offered sacrifices to specific gods in order to gain favor, blessing, and reward. Priests were as intrinsic to the ancient way of life as modern-day politicians or scientific experts are to our way of life, right? For a priest, the main concern was carrying on and passing down all of the affairs relating to the unseen dimensions of reality. That is, the daily rituals and sacrifices prescribed to appease the gods, as well as the preservation of the sacred cultural heritage of a society. Ancient people truly did assume that there was an inherent connection between the invisible powers of the heavenly realms and the real tangible effects seen on the earth. They were your representative. We have politicians who are representatives in Congress. And when you have a problem, you appeal to your representative. What if you have issues that the gods can help you with? You have a representative, a priest, right, who goes on your behalf. The Israelite form of or system of worship is quite different than what I just described, though. Their priesthood is different. Their priest doesn't appease the gods. Their priest unites them to their God through the systems and the sacrifices provided by God on Mount Sinai. And being the Most High God, God is in control of the life, or the life that is in the blood of the sacrifice. God is actually the one who's offering it. So it's a reversal of that system of we offer something to God or things like that, as though he needs something. But that's what a priest is. So Melchizedek is a priest of Elyon, El Elyon, a term referring to the highest God above all heaven and earth, the one at the top of the hierarchy of authority and power, used in reference to the Creator as being the highest God, El, above any other Elohim. So Melchizedek is the priest of Salem, Jerusalem, the city, the Jebusite city, right? And he's the king of that city during the time of Abraham. His name means king of righteousness, and he's a priest of the Most High God who brings out bread and wine to bless Abraham. And Abraham pays a tenth, a tithe, to Melchizedek. Why does Abraham pay a tithe to Melchizedek?
Hebrews talks about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talks about how like the higher blesses the lower.
Mm-hmm. The higher blesses the lower.
And so he's the king of righteousness, so he blesses Abraham, which is lower.
Yeah, so Abraham is lower than Melchizedek. And he says that the lower pays a tithe to the higher, is what also is said there. Okay? So who's greater, Melchizedek or Abraham? Melchizedek, right? Melchizedek is the one who bestows God's blessing upon Abraham. So that Abrahamic covenant is a torch that is passed from Melchizedek to Abraham, or that priesthood is passed to Levi through Abraham from Melchizedek. And it says, the book of Hebrews says, Levi through Abraham pays a tithe to Melchizedek, right? So the lower priesthood, the priesthood of the Levites or Leviticus, is lower than Melchizedek's priesthood, which is more ancient and higher, more important or more foundational. The Bible isn't giving you this outright, but if the priesthood of Melchizedek is higher than the Levitical priesthood, what kind of priesthood is it then? It's a heavenly, okay, that's one way of thinking about it. Who is the first priest in the Bible? Adam. Yeah, Adam. Good. So the garden is a temple, right? A temple space, and Adam is the one, Adam and Eve are there to work the garden, right? But they lose the blessing, right? And then you have these sort of priestly figures that show up through the lineage. Enoch is one of them. Noah is another. And then you get to Melchizedek, who hands off this priesthood to a specific people, the Israelites, okay? Those sons of Abraham, right? But we're supposed to have a priesthood, a representative, let me back up. Do the Levites represent me? No. Why not? They represent the 12 tribes of Israel. Does Melchizedek represent me? Yes. He's a greater, more ancient, Gentile priesthood. It's not a specific priesthood. It's the same priesthood of Adam. Okay. So now we have Melchizedek, right? And he is the king priest of Jerusalem. So now let's go back to 2 Samuel chapter 6, and I'm going to read something for you. Just a small couple of verses. I'm going to read something for you, okay? 2 Samuel chapter 6. Where has the Ark of the Covenant been dwelling? In the tabernacle, okay?
Is it the Israelites are the only ones that can carry the Ark of the Covenant?
Yes, right, exactly. So the ark is representing something, and the Levitical priesthood is tending to the Ark of the Covenant. But now that ark is being moved somewhere, okay? It's been dwelling at Shiloh in the tabernacle, but now it's being moved to the new capital, Jerusalem. I just want you to ask, why is David doing that? What's important about Jerusalem in David's mind? Why this city?
The city of God.
Okay, but it's not yet. You see what I'm saying? It's just that Jebusite city. Why do we need to? Why? And David's been reigning in Hebron for a while. It says for 10 years or something like that. So why go to Jerusalem? What's so important? Why do we have to conquer this city and take it?
You're ascending?
You could say literally. Like, you mean you're going up mountains?
Yeah.
Sure. But what's so special about Jerusalem?
Was it the promised land?
Well, the promised land is all of Israel. Yeah. Okay. I just want you to ask that question. I'm telling you that David is taking immense effort to take the tabernacle and move it somewhere. Put it somewhere else.
No, he wanted to build a temple.
Yeah, he wanted to build a temple in Jerusalem. Yeah.
And he has to bring.
But what is on David's mind? What's so important about this spot as opposed to this spot? Okay, good. He knows his scripture. He knows his Torah. And he knows that this plan of salvation is greater than just Israel in the land. Something needs to happen here. There's something important about Melchizedek. There's something important about Jerusalem in this land. This is the place of God's marking, okay? So let's read this. David is now taking immense effort to move the ark. In fact, it says that it's going to be a major hassle for David, and we can't actually get into that story, but it's going to be a major hassle for him. People are going to start dying, because of mishandling the ark. It's going to be bad, okay? But eventually he is going to make it, right? To Jerusalem. Okay, I'm just going to pick up at verse 13. You can imagine this as taking place, again, on the road up to the Mount Moriah, okay? After the men who were carrying the ark of the Lord had gone 6 steps, David sacrificed a bull and a fattened calf, and David danced before Yahweh with all of his might, wearing a priestly garment. So David and all the people of Israel brought the ark of Yahweh with shouts of joy and the blowing of ram's horns. And again, they're bringing it to Jerusalem in this great festival. And then there's going to be some, disagreement with him and his wife that we can't get into. But let's go ahead and pick up at verse 17. They brought the ark of Yahweh and set it in its place inside the special tent that David had prepared for it. And David sacrificed burnt offerings and peace offerings to the Lord. When he had finished his sacrifices, David blessed the people in the name of Yahweh of heaven's armies. He gave every Israelite man and woman in the crowd a loaf of bread and a cake of dates and a cake of raisins, and all the people returned to their homes. So this great festival taking place of the moving of the ark of God from Shiloh, where it's been dwelling temporarily for the past few hundred years, and now it's coming to its official resting point there in Jerusalem. So I've been trying to ask you, what's so important about Jerusalem? And why did David wear a priestly garment?
Well, he's going back to the old covenant, or Abraham's old covenant. Like that was supposed to be the promised land, where they left, Egypt to go to. I think he's just reenacting.
Okay, let's ask what the ark is in the first place. What is the ark?
The dwelling of Yahweh.
Okay, it's at the center of the holy place, right? In the tabernacle. So you have the courtyard where the sacrifices are made. You have the holy place where the priests go, where every priest can go, and then the high priest can go into the Holy of Holies, where the throne of God is. The ark itself is a throne. Okay, that's the best way to think about it. It contains things, but on those things, God is seated between the cherubim or above the cherubim, as it said. That would be these two here. And so David is dancing, wearing a priestly garment before God in a festival as they ascend the mountain to bring it into where it's supposed to be at Zion. Okay? What do we think about that? Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry?
He's setting his throne on the highest place.
Okay.
Top of the mountain.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Good. Good. What else?
He's trying to find a final resting place for the throne of God.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But like a palace for him, and so Jerusalem probably seems like the best place to him.
Okay. So he's trying to find, or does he already know where it should be? Okay. Again, why is David dressing up as a priest?
He's representative of God to his people.
He is representing God to his people, but there's a Levitical priesthood already existing in Israel. So why is he he's not a Levite? Isn't this blasphemous, as you said? Why is he allowed to dress up as a priest? Uh-huh. Okay. Good. Excellent. So he doesn't see himself as dressing up as a priest of the Levites.
It's a different kind of priest. It's a new priest.
He sees himself as a priest in the line of Melchizedek, which is a priesthood on behalf of everyone, not just Israel. And he sees himself as being the new king of Salem. What David sees when he reads his Torah, when he reads the book of Genesis, and he reads Genesis chapter 14, where it says, King Melchizedek of Salem brought out bread and wine to bless Abraham and pass that torch down to Abraham. David sees that, as he says, that Melchizedek figure. I stand in his line. I stand in his lineage. This Levitical thing is temporary, but this, God, the restoration of God for all of humanity, this is my charge. This is what I'm given, the task given by God to me and my family is this. The point of Israel was, and this is not conceded in any way, the point of Israel was leading to me, and now I'm taking this forward. So what is amazing about this moment is that it brings together so many vital points of the scriptures so far. King David here dresses up as a priest as he brings the ark of God into the same city where his forefather Abraham was blessed by the priest King Melchizedek, a moment which served as the earliest confirmation of God's promise to restore humanity to God through Abraham's offspring. Clearly, David understands what is happening here is centuries of promise being realized, as well as further confirmation of the fulfillment of promise yet to come. What do I mean by that? This is where we need to turn to Psalm 110. And I need to tell you that this is the most quoted writing in the New Testament of the Old Testament. If a New Testament writer, if you asked them, hey, what's the most important psalm for understanding what you're trying to communicate? They would say Psalm 110. That's the most important one because they quote it so often. Okay? So turn to Psalm 110. You guys ready to read it? And we'll just pick through this a little bit and we'll try to understand it. Yahweh says to my Lord. By the way, David is writing this. Yahweh says to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I make your enemies your footstool. Put your enemies under your feet. The Lord sends out from Zion your mighty scepter. Rule in the midst of your foes. Your people will offer themselves willingly on the day you lead your forces on the holy mountains. From the womb of the morning, like dew, your youth will come to you. The Lord Yahweh has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, after the order of Melchizedek. The Lord is at your right hand. He will shatter kings on the day of his wrath. He will execute judgment among the nations, filling them with corpses. He will shatter heads over the wide earth. He will drink from the stream by the path. Therefore, he will lift up his head. Okay, initial thoughts. This is one of the most foundational passages of Scripture for understanding a lot of things, okay? One of the most quoted psalm of the New Testament, or the New Testament writers quote this psalm a lot. Why do they do that? It's prophetic. Prophetic of what? Jesus. Okay. In what way?
Jesus sitting at the right hand of God.
Jesus sitting at the right hand of God. Okay, good. But how are we relating this to the passage we just read in 2 Samuel chapter 6?
He sees himself as Melchizedek, and so he's kind of sees that messianic figure.
Okay, so David sees himself as the priest of Melchizedek, or a priest in the priesthood of Melchizedek. King of Jerusalem, King of Salem, King of peace. My King is righteousness is his name, right? So David is writing this, but David is writing this about himself? Is David writing this about himself?
I think he's writing it like for his lineage, right?
That's good. That's good. He's writing about his lineage, and we'll get into that in the next chapter. But if it's his lineage, let's just take that first verse. Yahweh says to my Lord, is a son greater than their father? Unless they're Jesus. Okay? So David calls his son my Lord. You guys catch that? David calls his son my Lord. Jesus says this in the New Testament. He brings up this psalm, and he's arguing with the Pharisees, and he asks that question of the Pharisees. He says, if the my Lord there is David's son, how can he call him my Lord? And then it says the Pharisees had nothing to say to him. Why is Jesus asking that question? Because he is David's Lord. Yes. Who is David's Lord? God. God is David's Lord. But his son is his Lord. And you are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek. David is saying that because remember, Melchizedek's priesthood. To be a priest of Melchizedek is to be a priest of the one who, again, passed that torch to Abraham in the first place. So to restore an even older, more ancient representation, the original representation, the image of God. Anyone? Jesus is the true image of God. So the Levitical priests and the tabernacle are shadows and foreshadows of something in the future, but also something in the past. That the priests of the Levites, they're only mirroring or modeling, you could say, a more authentic priesthood. That is the priesthood of Melchizedek. Is it anyone confused? You can say it if you're confused. It's okay. It's a lot to take in. I want to read to you another psalm. Psalm chapter 24. Okay, Psalm chapter 24. And let's read this, and you tell me what comes out and jumps out to you when we read this psalm. Here we go. The earth is Yahweh's and everything in it. The world and all who live in it. For he founded it on the seas and established it on the waters. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? Who may stand in his holy place? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not trust in an idol or swear by a false god. They will receive blessing from Yahweh and vindication from God, their Savior. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek your face, God of Jacob. Lift up your heads, you gates, be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is the King of glory? Yahweh, strong and mighty. Yahweh, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, gates, lift them up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is he, this King of glory? Yahweh Almighty. He is the King of glory. Okay, what jumps out to you there?
The God of Jacob.
What?
Jacob was called Israel. Right?
Yeah, one who wrestles with God, sure. What else?
I don't know, David had to go into take over Jerusalem and open the doors.
Okay, good. Okay, so let's ask the question, what is the relationship between this column of text and this column of text? So, who may ascend the mountain of Yahweh? Who may stand in the holy place? What's the holy place? Where God's glory, okay, sure. In the tabernacle, who belongs in the holy place? The priests. Priests belong in the holy place. Okay. So are we talking about the priest in the holy place on the mountain of God, Zion? Or are we talking about a generation?
Yeah, it seems like it's talking to a lot of people, not just one person.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's how I'm reading it.
Well, it says the one who has clean hands and a pure heart, right? Then it says, and then it says they.
Mine doesn't even say they.
Yeah, mine says he.
Oh, does it?
It says he.
Yeah, it means he.
Well, does it say such as the generation?
Uh,
Yeah.
Such is the generation
Of those who seek him.
Right.
Does it start off specific with Jesus and then expand?
Right. Okay, good.
Because none of the rest of us meet that chapter 2.
Right.
Clean hands and pure heart. It's not
Right. Right. By ourselves. Right.
by ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So who is ascending? Okay. The one who has clean hands and a pure heart. The sinless one. Okay. Who stands in the holy place? The priests. Okay. And then,
right? We are priests.
yeah, kingdom of priests. Yeah. So you're talking about the relationship between Jesus as high priest and the kingdom of priests. Yep. Good. But then what's the relationship between that and the second line? It shifts. Lift up your gates, be lifted up, you ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in.
So they didn't have to go through the pipe like the attackers.
Sure. Right. Exactly. But that's the point. The king is doing what? Ascending a mountain? Come in where? Where is the King of glory to come into? Okay. Think about David dancing before the ark, right? He's dancing before the ark, right? You have him as priest, God's throne right there with him, and they're ascending the mountain. Open up the gates that the King of glory may come in. Who is the King of glory? Yahweh Almighty, right? He is the King of glory. So what this psalm is doing and pointing out for you, right? Think of this layered image of David dancing before the ark as the Son of Man at the right hand of the Father, that they are coming in together to the mountain of God, right? When you ask, who is the King of glory? Who are we talking about? Yahweh.
I kind of have like a little parallel from Judges when Samson took the gates and he like carried him up the hill, and how he pointed that to the life of Jesus when he
Carried his
did the
cross.
same thing.
Yeah.
And it's happening again.
Yeah. Really true. Do you guys go ahead?
Yeah, I'm just asking for clarity because, yeah, he who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to what is false and does not swear deceitfully. To me, that doesn't necessarily mean Jesus.
Why not?
Well, because it means anyone who might follow Jesus and be clean of hands and pure of heart. And
Such as the generation.
exactly right.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah.
No, you're right.
Cool. That's
Yeah.
that was it. Because no shade or anything, but yeah. It was because she was.
Remember the New Testament language is you put on Christ. You are little Christ, right? Okay.
And he tells us in Matthew writes, or in Matthew says, "Do not swear."
The new Adam and the versus the old Adam. We are all part of the new humanity, right? Which is in Christ. Yeah. So that's what I was trying to point out. Are we talking about a person or are we talking about a generation? Right? Both.
Because the only reason a generation can be is because of that person.
Exactly. That's the point. Yes. But who is that person that is ascending?
Right, I can be read either way. Perfect.
The point here is...
That God sees this one way, I don't see myself that way.
Yeah.
So I don't see myself to paragraph 3.
By yourself, though, we are changed and transformed into his likeness. Good. Okay. Do you guys follow what's going on here? The King of Glory coming into the city. David dancing before the Ark of the Covenant, wearing his priestly ephod, right? The priesthood of Melchizedek. Why is he allowed to do that? Why does Michal get so mad at him for it? He's like, you have no idea what's going on, okay? You have no idea what's going on. But David knows. He reads his Torah, and he says, that city where Abraham was blessed by Melchizedek, I need to go there. And you know what I need to do there? I need to dress up as a priest. And you know what I need to do? I need to write Psalm 110. Someone from my lineage is going to be the king over the entire world and a priesthood of all nations. And he is going to be sitting at the right hand of the Father. Who is this King of Glory? Yahweh Almighty. He's the one who is ascending the mountain, coming in. Okay? Good? Jesus, again, he brings it all together. That's what's amazing about the incarnation is like, oh, the Son of David is God. Okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, I get it.
Yeah.
And you could think of Jesus as dancing before the throne of God in heaven. That's his priesthood. Sound good? Excellent. Let's go to 2 Samuel chapter 7 now. This should bring it all home for you. Thinking about verse 1. When King David was settled in his palace, and Yahweh had given him rest from all the surrounding enemies, the king summoned Nathan the prophet. Look, David said, I am living in a beautiful cedar palace, but the ark of God is out there in a tent. Nathan replied to the king, Go ahead and do whatever you have in mind, for Yahweh is with you. That same night, Yahweh said to Nathan, Hold on now. What right do you tell David he can go do that, right? He says, that was my words. I was interjecting that. Think about verse 5. No. Go tell my servant David, this is what Yahweh has declared. Are you the one to build a house for me to live in? I have never lived in a house. From the day I brought the Israelites out of Egypt until this very day, I have always moved from one place to another with a tent and a tabernacle as my dwelling. Yet no matter where I have gone with the Israelites, I have never once complained to Israel's tribal leaders, the shepherds of my people Israel. I have never asked them, Why haven't you built me a beautiful cedar house? Now go and say to my servant David, This is what Yahweh of heaven's armies has declared. I took you from tending sheep in the pasture and selected you to be the leader of my people Israel. I have been with you wherever you have gone, and I have destroyed all your enemies from before your eyes. Now I will make your name as famous as anyone who ever lived on the earth, and I will provide a homeland for my people Israel, planting them in a secure place where they will never be disturbed. Evil nations won't oppress them as they have done in the past, starting from the time I appointed judges to rule over my people Israel, and I will give you rest from all your enemies. Furthermore, Yahweh declares that he will make a house for you, a dynasty of kings. For when you die and are buried with your ancestors, I will raise up one of your descendants, your own offspring, and I will make his kingdom strong. He is the one who will build my house, a temple for my name, and I will secure his royal throne forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son. If he sins, I will correct and discipline him with the rod like any father would do. But my favor will not be taken from him as I took it from Saul, whom I removed from your sight. Your house and your kingdom will continue before me for all time, and your throne will be secure forever. So Nathan went back to David and told him everything that Yahweh said in his vision. Then King David went in and sat before Yahweh and prayed. Who am I, sovereign Lord? And what is my family that you have brought me this far? And now, sovereign Yahweh, in addition to everything else, you speak of giving your servant a lasting dynasty. Do you deal with everyone this way, O sovereign Yahweh? What more can I say to you? You know what your servant is really like, sovereign Yahweh. Because your promise and according to your will, you have done all these great things and have made them known to your servant. How great you are, O sovereign Yahweh! There is no one like you. We have never even heard of another God like you. What other nation on earth is like your people Israel? What other nation, O God, you have redeemed from slavery to be your own people? You made a great name for yourself when you redeemed your people from Egypt. You performed awesome miracles and drove out the nations and gods that stood in their way. You made Israel your very own people forever, and you, O Yahweh, became their God. And now, O Yahweh God, I am your servant. Do as you have promised concerning me and my family. Confirm it as a promise that will last forever. And may your name be honored forever, so that everyone will say, Yahweh of heaven's armies is God over Israel. And may the house of your servant David continue before you forever. O Yahweh of heaven's armies, God of Israel, I have been bold enough to pray this prayer to you because you have revealed all this to your servant, saying, I will build a house for you, a dynasty of kings. For you are God, O sovereign Lord. Your words are truth, and you have promised these good things to your servant. And now may it please you to bless the house of your servant, so that it may continue before you forever. For you have spoken, and when you grant a blessing to your servant, O sovereign Yahweh, it is an eternal blessing. Okay. So that's what we call the Davidic covenant. Okay. It's the promise given to David that no matter what wrong your sons will commit, your dynasty and your kingdom will be everlasting. And it will be a kingdom for all eternity. What do we think about that?
Was 13 and 14 a reference to Jesus?
When it says if he sins?
No.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Right about that. It says, he shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he shall be my son.
Oh, yeah. I see. Because it says, yeah, okay. All of this is referring to the house of David generally, which ends in Jesus. So the answer is yes and no, in the sense that, listen, your sons are going to do awful things. Solomon's going to do awful things, meaning the direct, immediate son of, and your great-grandson, and your great-great-great-great-grandson, they're going to commit awful, horrible sins, iniquities. But the kingship will never leave the house of David. To answer your question, the fulfillment of that is Jesus, the one who never sins, who never goes through this process of the rebuke. In fact, he actually does go through the rebuke, having not sinned. So he goes on behalf of his fathers. He goes through the rebuke. But what other thoughts do we have about this passage?
Nowhere in here does God say, build me a physical.
Yeah. So again, his point is, listen, my dwelling, the house that is to be built, is to be in your own flesh and blood, right? So what does Jesus say? He says, destroy this temple and I'll build it up 3 days again, or build it back up again in 3 days. And then what does it say? He wasn't speaking of that temple of stone. He was speaking of the temple of his body, right? So the house that God builds for David is the incarnational body of Jesus, which includes those present, if that makes sense. Are you following me there?
And that's why we need to treat our bodies as a temple.
Yeah, well, our bodies are a temple, and we are part of the body of Christ. But that's sort of or you could say we are part of the house that God has built for David. Yeah, that's one way of thinking about it. Yeah, and the point here is, even when Solomon builds that temple of stone, Solomon says, very, very importantly, he says, God, you are not contained anywhere. Okay? So don't think of this as though, this is Solomon in his wise years. He says, don't think of this as, we actually believe, he prays to God. God, we know that this temple is your temple dwelling, but you're not contained here, right? He says, not even highest heaven contains you. That's what he says. Good?
How does this relate to Revelation when the temple is to be rebuilt, right?
So you're thinking there's not a temple in Revelation. You're thinking of Ezekiel.
Okay, Ezekiel. Well, whatever. The end time prophecies about
A third temple?
that Jack didn't get excited on.
Yeah, there's
The ephod being made.
there is a certain group. There's a certain group that believes that a third temple will be built. Yeah.
Do you think so? That there's a certain group. So
It's a big group, but
no, I know.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm asking you, what temple could they be getting that confused with? Is it
the Ezekiel temple? There's a temple described in Ezekiel after the destruction of the second temple, or the first temple, excuse me. So
right? I'm wondering
Yeah.
if it connects at all to the fact that we're not talking about a physical temple.
yeah, I mean, the Ezekiel temple traditionally is interpreted to not be a physical temple, even though it's has physically descriptive terms, but it's symbolic language. Some people will not take it that way, though. Yeah. So, does that answer your question? Yeah. But for context, for everyone's context, no, that's fine. The point here is the temple is always meant to be moving, right? He says, God says, I've dwelt with Israel wherever they've gone as they move. I am a mobile God, right? And I've been with you wherever you've gone. I dwell directly with you, David. You know what I mean? Don't think that like if you build a temple, it's like, oh, that's where I go to be with him. Remember he walked with Adam in the garden. Yeah, that's a spiritual reality. Yep. You had something?
I was going to ask about your trip out to Israel.
Mhm.
Is that Solomon's temple still out there, or did that get destroyed?
No, so Solomon's temple gets destroyed in the process of them being sent into the Babylonian exile. So when we get to the end of Second Kings, we're going to read about the destruction of the temple that Solomon built. Then Ezra and Zerubbabel being David's son. Zerubbabel means born in Babylon, but he's in the lineage of Jesus or the lineage of David, and he builds a second temple. That's going to be the temple that stands during the time of Jesus. And then that gets destroyed right after the New Testament is written. And remember, Jesus in Matthew 24 is saying, hey, this thing's coming down, because the true temple, the true house has been built in my body, in my flesh and blood. So, that makes sense, guys? We're pointing forward to a lot.
So stop trying to do this physical.
Gosh, yeah, well, yeah. Here's the point. God has made a promise to David. His kingdom will be everlasting. That's why I am saying 3,000 years later, you're part of that kingdom. If you're present in the room, you're a citizen of that kingdom. In fact, it's a kingdom that's bestowed upon David. That's the thing. David's eternal dynasty, his eternal kingdom, merges with God's eternal kingdom. You see what I'm saying? It's that incarnation, the flesh and blood of the human David in his son, Jesus. Mary's body, right? Mary's DNA imbued in the divine presence. You know what I mean? And so the eternal kingdom of God that has been going on for all eternity, the kingdom of the Trinity, you could say, united with David's fleshy kingdom, raising up David's kingdom to be an eternal one, in the incarnation. What gives David's kingdom the ability or the nature of being eternal is that it's unified with God in the incarnation, that the Son of David is God in the flesh. Okay? The Son of David is the Son of God. Cool? No. You.
Are we still going to discuss the Trinity later? Like
Yes.
The New Testament?
Yes.
Because I'm kind of getting confused.
Yes, we will talk about that. I think we're due a whole meeting on that. I think. Yeah. I'm gonna read Psalm 2 now. Psalm 2. Okay, here I go. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against Yahweh and against his Messiah, saying, let us burst their bonds asunder and cast their cords from us. He who sits in the heavens laughs. Yahweh has them in derision. He will speak to them in his wrath and terrify them in his fury, saying, I have set my king on Zion, my holy hill. I will tell of the decree of Yahweh. He said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Now therefore, O kings, be wise. Be warned, you rulers of the earth. Serve Yahweh with fear, with trembling, kiss his feet, or he will be angry, and you will perish in the way, for his wrath is quickly kindled. Happy are all who take refuge in him. Okay, thoughts? Another immensely important psalm. If you want to think about, okay, what are the psalms that are directly referring, or the passages that are directly referring to sort of prophecies about Jesus? It would be Psalm 110, Psalm 2 is another example. And so that's why we're going Psalm 24. Go ahead.
Did David write this?
This is not a Psalm of David. Yeah.
What sticks out to me is where he says, kiss the sun,
Mm-hmm.
be angry.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'm interpreting that as like be intimate with.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, well, pay honor to, like imagine you're kissing This says kiss his feet, but
Oh, does it?
well, yeah, well, probably a more literal translation would be kiss his feet. Yeah. Go ahead.
Did you highlight those for a reason?
Yes.
Like to read them like that?
No, I didn't. I just wanted you to take notice of those words. So in here, the nations are against Yahweh and his anointed, but the nations are the possession given to the anointed one, right? I will tell of the decree of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your inheritance, right? So that the nations that antagonize Yahweh and his anointed, Yahweh sits in heaven and laughs and says, you guys are all fools. I put you down. I have set on Zion my king, and his inheritance is all of you. Don't laugh at me. Don't laugh at him. I'm laughing at you because you don't actually understand that you're all going to come underneath his rule. Okay? Take notice of the last verse. Happy are all who take refuge in him. What is another translation?
Blessed.
Blessed? Good. Blessed just means happy, by the way. I don't know if you guys knew that. So, happy are all who take refuge in who? In God, right? But here's the thing. Who is the one that brings judgment among the nations? I will tell of the decree of the Lord. He said to me, you are my son. Today I have begotten you. Ask of me, and I will make the nations your heritage, the ends of the earth your possession. You shall break them with a rod of iron and dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Yeah, the Son of God is the judge. And how will you be saved from his wrath? Take refuge in him. So what if I take refuge in something? What does that look like?
I'm like trusting you.
Okay, but like let's have the literal imagery. You hide inside. Yeah. So imagine there's hailstones falling from, the sky, and I take refuge in this building, right?
So did Jesus write this song?
It's an anonymous psalm.
You are my son.
Oh, okay.
Today I have begotten you.
Yeah.
Something only Jesus would be able to say.
Right. Well, it wouldn't be that Jesus himself wrote this psalm. The Holy Spirit is writing the psalm prophesying about the one who is to come, who is the inheritant, who is to inherit the nations. See what I'm saying?
Makes sense for David.
Yeah, it just doesn't say in the heading. It doesn't say of David.
This just seems like the gospel.
It is the gospel. Yes.
It's like setting right what went wrong.
Absolutely.
I think about the nations conspire. I think about when they were plotting, to build a staircase and all that. All the stuff that from the fall, that gets set right by the Son.
Yeah.
And the way it gets set right personally is when you take refuge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So God is bringing his day of wrath, his day of judgment, to restore everything. How will you manage to survive in that day? It's giving you the answer.
Better
Hide in him.
Shelter.
Be found hidden and sheltered in him. Take refuge. What does it say in another psalm? The Lord Yahweh is a strong tower, right? The one who runs into it is safe.
You know what's interesting to me is it seems that anytime, just in this moment and then like when Jesus was making I statements,
Yeah.
it seems like anytime somebody's like overtaken or speaking from the Holy Spirit or like being led through the Holy Spirit, they make these I statements. Like he said to me, even though the person who's writing it isn't Jesus, he's speaking in a first person.
So the psalmist who wrote this, theoretically, you can assume is the one who takes refuge in him, right? Yeah, making him, again, like you have to think of yourself as Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and we are made adopted to be sons of God with him, right? That idea. So yes, there's a good way of thinking about it in that Jesus Christ is beloved, therefore I am beloved. Yeah. We are in him. Yeah. We're in him. If Jesus Christ is beloved and I am his pinky toe, I am part of the beloved. Yeah, if that makes sense. Even if I'm the pinky toe, does that make sense? Even if I'm the earlobe.
In Revelation, I think the imagery.
Yeah.
The incense. Just get to be like just a little piece of the picture of that. Just the incense. What do you say the incense is the
prayers of the saints, which rises before God. And then actually, this is what's so cool about it. And then it says, and then the incense becomes burning coals that is cast down onto the earth. So the prayers are answered in the day of wrath, right? So, wow, we'll talk about it. So, yeah. So cool, guys. This is the Davidic covenant. This is what's great is when you read it, you think all of your Jesus fireworks should be going off in your brain. Like, this is why I said we're getting to the really good parts. Because here's the main point is when the prophets of the Old Testament are going to continuously go to the son of David and they're going to say, stop doing what you're doing. Oh my gosh. Why are you sacrificing your children in the valley of Hinnom? Why are you doing that? They're still thinking, but God promised to David an eternal promise. That means there is a David to come who's going to make it right. He's going to make it better, okay? And we wait for that Messiah to come. Okay, so when we read Isaiah and Jeremiah and in Ezekiel, and it's talking about the David to come, I threw up that Ezekiel. God will give us David, and there will be one shepherd over all the people. Like, they're not talking about the David of the past; they're talking about the David of the future. And when the New Testament, time and again, talks about the Jesus as the son of David, the root of David, the heir to David's throne, like it's saying that one has come. When it says that he's sinless, the point is to say that all of the screw-ups of the past, you won't find a screw-up in him. You take refuge in him, and you will be spared in the day of wrath, because he has redeemed you by his own blood. He is not just your king. He's not just your priest. He's the Passover lamb as well. And by his own blood, he purchased you.
What I keep thinking of is like the people who say like, oh, well, Jesus was just a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't God.
Uh-huh.
And the answer is like, yes. Like, no, he was just a good teacher, but he also was God.
Yeah.
Right? It's like it's not one of the
He
other.
was the good shepherd. And the thing is most people who say things like that, they're just ignorant of the Psalms that I've shown you. You know what I mean? Like, the whole point is that this was anticipated from the beginning.
And mostly people who say things like that haven't actually opened the book.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because if they think he's a good teacher, then him claiming to be God would be...
It would make him insane.
That would be a bad
C.S. Lewis says that, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's either one of two things.
You've quoted Mere Christianity multiple times today.
And we were talking about the root of David. Really, the title given to Messiah is the root of Jesse.
Yeah. In Isaiah.
Because he comes out of the Father.
Yeah.
Father.
Yeah, he comes out of his father. Yeah. Oh, that gets real deep with Trinitarian stuff. Oh, boy. But he does say root of David in Revelation. It's one of the last titles that he gives himself is I am the root of David at the very end. He says, I am the root of David and the bright morning star, which is language referring to Balaam's prophecy all the way back in Numbers. So a star will rise out of Jacob and he will crush the foreheads of Sheth. And anyway. So again, that breaking with the rod of iron, that's going back to Numbers, the prophecy of Balaam. It all gets real remixed and interconnected now, guys. It's about to get crazy. All that stuff that we're talking about, like, we've talked about everything in a very deconstructed way, and now, like, everything's going to be mixed together in a mixing bowl. You know what I mean? And it's going to be like, oh, it's all Jesus. Oh, I get it, So, I know we've already talked about that a lot, but any other notes before we finish up? That's the promise of God to David.
I was thinking about what I pointed out, how it says he sits in the heavens, laughs, the Lord has him in derision. It kind of connects to what I was talking about before, how the rulers take counsel together against God. Mm-hmm. And so the reason why he's laughing is because his throne is in heaven, not on earth. Mm-hmm. So then them thinking that they're more powerful is kind of funny to him because he's like, you guys are dumb.
Well, so it makes me think of Paul saying, if the rulers had known what was going to happen in the crucifixion, they wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, exactly.
And the idea is they are ridiculing the Lord and his anointed, whereas that ridicule is, in fact, God is like, gotcha. Catch 22, right?
First Corinthians talks about 1 Corinthians 2. 14 will tell you, like, you don't share about the natural man or if you only see stuff in the scripture.
Yeah.
Certain things, like, you know, Jesus read the word on it.
Yeah. So, what it takes to understand all of this is a surrendered heart and mind. That's for sure. You know, you have to pray to God and say, God, reveal yourself to me in your scriptures as you have for so many. You can't just try to be like, you know, like, just like, oh, I'll just figure it out. You know what I mean? It's like those who have hearts and eyes and ears to hear and see. It's like, or those who have humbled themselves before God and said, okay, teach me, Lord, you know? So anyway. Believing you see. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, this all connects even more deeply even to why these kings would try to go against God and why they think they even have an ability to do that. Just going off of, again, that spiritual realm, reversing Herman, all that, understanding spiritual aspects of what goes on, what has gone on in the past, and why God has to do it in a certain way to undo or conquer what sin has already been.
Undo a world of like that has been given over, right? Yeah.
Remember when we said the reason why those ancient people felt that they were the kings and the lords is this whole merging of spiritual with and we have the
unholy union of heaven and earth. Yeah.
But that was an unholy, not good thing. But from that, that's where they get those original kings and stuff. So these people are coming from we have divine right power.
That's true. That's good.
So they're still thinking in that way in some ways. And God's like, yeah, but I got a plan that's going to, like, outdo all of you guys. And if they had known that Jesus had to die, then they would.
You mean the spiritual powers? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm also always thinking.
Yeah, there's a reason why Paul says we do battle with rulers and authorities, right? Yeah, in the heavenly realm. Yeah. So what I was gonna say is, when he is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, that's one title given to Jesus, King of Kings. So again, a king is a judge, he's a mediator. What about the King of the Kings? You know, who's that? It's God, of course. And Jesus, it says, has that name written on his body, right? And so anyway, my dad always calls it a tattoo, and I'm like, Dad, it doesn't say tattoo. Anyway, but he loves saying it's a tattoo. Anyway, that's in Revelation. Okay, any other thoughts, guys? These are our last deep end moments of 2025. So yeah.
I just want to say it also bring it back to us. Like my mom, I'm just thinking about my mom. She was a matriarch out of 5 generations. And she was saved and she's a believer. And everyone knew that. And so when she passed away, I really felt her legacy of believing in God for our generation was for me, my sons, to carry it on. And I think that's for everyone in here. It's like God has those special people in those generations, no matter what happens, to carry that on. It's just up to them.
Agreed. Good note. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, guys. Well, if there's nothing else, Happy New Year. Can we take a selfie before you guys leave, just for the fun of it? Yeah, does that sound good? Okay, guys. Selfie time. Ready? Everyone get in there. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you, guys. That's just for me. All right. Happy New Year, everyone. When we meet again, David's going to have a major failure. Okay? It's not going to be good.